All right, welcome, folks. It has been a long 3 days, but it's still got some content left. We've got some amazing presentations coming up. Want to hit a couple of housekeeping tips first, and then I'll introduce our guest for this session. So, couple of easy things. If you're having audio problems, make sure to refresh your browser. Most technical issues we have seen over the last 3 days have been solved via a quick refresh, bring you right back into the session. All of these slides or PDF for this session are available on the right-hand side of your screen in the Docs tab of your chat window. Also, the presenter will be taking questions at the end, so please drop those in the Q&A session, and then I will pop back on at the very end to read those out, pending we have time. So get them in early, because I try to go from bottom to top when I do those. If you have any questions for me or have other problems doing, you can also ping the chat, and I will do my best to help. Other than that, I would like to present our amazing and awesome guest, whose name I have actually heard a lot in my career here at Blackbaud so far, sometimes with some grumpiness behind it as, oh God, that guy did a thing again. But I know he's a wealth of knowledge. I'm looking forward to seeing what he has in the beyond the CMS world. All right, this is Manny Alonso from the Georgia Tech Foundation. Manny, stage is yours.
Thanks, Richard. Like Richard said, my name is Manny Alonso. I'm from Georgia Tech Foundation. I'm a UI UX developer there, and I've been there for about 2 years. Grew up in Laredo, Texas. I love hiking and playing some instruments. So a little bit of what I'm going to be talking about is React. So a lot of the front-end applications that we've worked on and built in CRM have been using React. So I'm just going to kind of go through how we did it. Maybe you're interested in doing that. So hopefully that's helpful. So before I get into the slides, I kind of want to show what we've made. Let's see if I can share my screen real quick. Let's see. All right, so this is our donor portal. So this is completely built in React. And we built this here at Georgia Tech. So this is just it's your typical React project, and it lives in BBIS, and that's connected through, it pushes data back and forth between CRM, and I'll explain how we kind of do that. That's our homepage. We have a giving history page that the donor can log in and see their giving history over time. And then we also have edit profile. We just rebuilt this recently, and they can come in here and add emails or edit their emails, add phone numbers, add addresses, and we have Google API built into it and all that good stuff. So that's just kind of high level of what we did with React, and I'll explain how we got there. All right. So this is just our agenda. It'll be kind of a quick session. We'll go into why React, kind of the architecture behind React, how we interact with data from CRM, and then some challenges and some solutions, and then hopefully some Q&A if you have questions. So first, why React? We wanted to build a dynamic responsive interfaces. We wanted to make sure that it was component-based, so if we needed to reuse components across other projects, we could just kind of drag and drop, and React really gives that ability to do that. And then also, it's just a better developer experience. It's more maintainable, so we have all our React code and our source control, and we can, push updates through Git and all that. So a little bit about the architecture, if you've ever used React. This is kind of small for me to see, but it's your typical HTML project. And if you've ever seen a React HTML project, there's a div and it has an ID of root. And basically the React code is injected into that div, and it looks for that ID called root. In our case, what we did, because we still wanted to use postback, we made several BBIS pages, and what we did in the HTML is that we give a div an ID of the page that we're trying to target. So in this particular example, you'll see ID giving history page. And so the React code just looks for that div with that ID and injects the code that we have for that page in React into that CMS page. And I'll go through how we set all that up if you've ever used BBIS, hopefully. But this would work. I mean, this would work anywhere. And that's another reason why we went with React, because we wanted to make sure that if we ever did move away from BBIS or move somewhere else, we could just kind of lift our donor portal and move it into other places. So first, if you're in BBIS, you create a CMS template in BBIS. And then you add what's called an unformatted text part, and this is really just HTML. And this is where we put our script. So we have a script tag, and the SRC tag has where we host our script. In this case, we host it in Blackbaud, and we just point the SRC to that script, and then we just add it. And so that's our template, and that lives on every single BBIS page because every page needs access to that script. And then we create a regular page. So in this example, giving history page, and we use that template. On the bottom, it says donor portal template with nav, and that's the template that we created before. So we assign it that template. Then we add another unformatted text part to the page. Now this is an individual BBIS page, and we put that ID there with ID of giving history page. And so now the script, if that ID exists, then it's going to inject the React code into just this page, not all our other pages. Because the script lives on all the pages because it lives inside the template, it's not going to inject the giving history code into all the pages. It's only going to inject it to where it finds that div with that ID. And then if you did all that right, then you hopefully get our giving history page, which looks something like this that I showed earlier. So in the way we build the React app, we use Webpack. And the reason we chose Webpack was because it builds it into a single JS file. So it packs in all the CSS and all the JS into one single file. And it's just easier for us to use and kind of distribute into different places. But lately, I've been using Vite for some of our newer projects, and that builds a JS file and a CSS file. And it's kind of just easier to use. You just put it in the HTML file, and it's a little bit easier in terms of like what you see. You get the CSS separate and the JS separate. But for our other projects, we use Webpack, which bundles it into one single file. Let me see if there's anything else valuable here. Yeah, this is just you can see like the const root equals React DOM create root. And that just looks for, at the top there, the document.get element by ID, giving history page. That's the div that we create in BBIS. And so this is the React code. If it finds that code, then it injects the root.render, which is, in this case, our GTF header, our giving history component, and our footer component, and injects all that into that div, and that's our React code. And then the way we pull data from CRM into React and also out of React into back into CRM, we have a C# client request handler. And all that does is that it allows us to make calls to data forms, data lists, record operations. And pretty much, I don't know if you guys can see it, but we pass in a body in the payload. We say request type data list, so it knows that we're targeting a data list, and we just pass the data list ID. And if there's any filters or any additional things we need to pass through, we can pass it in that body. And this just passes that payload to that handler, and then we just get a JSON response. And that's all protected with JSON web tokens. So it sends a web token back, and we send one back to make sure that it's authenticated, and then it gives us a new one each time. So this is how it all connects. The user visits a BBIS page. The script that we have detects the ID on the div that's on that page. It loads the appropriate page. React calls our client request handler, whether we want to call a data list or data form. And CRM returns structured data, and React renders the result. And that's how we kind of got the whole thing going without having to use raw HTML and JS inside of BBIS. So some challenges and solutions that we faced. secure backend access. So like we want to make sure that we're only exposing data to authenticated users. So we use JSON web tokens to kind of restrict that and make sure that BBIS has roles. So we assign roles to new users to make sure that the page that they're accessing, they can actually access. We created some custom data lists. We used a lot of things that were already existed in CRM that we can just, we need info from constituent data. So we use a built-in data list that's already there, or if we need it a little bit more specific, then maybe we built our own. Transform data server side. So that's just our client request handler. Make sure that the data that comes back from CRM, kind of structure it before it goes back to the front end, just to make it easier. Then we have React hooks, just to fetch logic and manage loading and error states to make sure that was especially useful for our edit profile page, because we're sending a lot of data back. Either we're editing, we're adding, or we're requesting like to delete or something. And then the last thing was that script file, making sure that we add some sort of content hash so the browser knows to pick up a new version every time we upload a new version, because we were running into the issue that we would upload a new script file and the changes wouldn't detect right away. So that's just how we got to that. And that's it. Hopefully that's helpful to anyone that's interested in adding React to BBIS. That's my email. If you have any questions, I would love to help you out, or if you have any questions now, that would be great. Let's see. I see a question in the chat. It says, what version of React are you using? Also, how are you handling state, Redux, or just use state hook? I'm pretty sure we're on React 18. I could check whatever the latest version is. Handling state, we're not using Redux. We're just using the typical use state hook. Thanks, Cameron.
All right. Any other questions from our audience? Drop them in the Q&A. We've got some time. All right. Looks like you just oh, here we go. Here's some more coming in. All right. Let's see. We've got. Is there a reason to use Redux over the use state hooks? Do you know?
I believe Redux is useful when you're handling a lot of state. We're not really handling a lot of state within a page right now. I know that there's benefits to using Redux, but nothing that we've built is as complicated that we need to handle so much state. So we've just been using the typical state hook, but I have thought about it to going into Redux.
Okay. All right. And then we have, how much time do you spend managing the solution versus making improvements?
Ooh, good question, Jacob. Managing the solution. I think that we definitely do a lot of testing before we release something, obviously. But making improvements, I mean, with front end, like there's always room for improvement. And so we're kind of always going back. Just recently, where we went back and we're kind of redoing our whole giving history dashboard, just because we were using Power BI and we want to use something more mobile friendly. So I guess I would say it just depends on the project. It depends like where we want to take it, but there's always room to make anything better.
All right. Anything else from anybody out there? I'll give it another minute or two. All right. Manny, you have anything else you want to share with us while we've got some time here?
There's one more question I see from Jay. Do you use a React solution for donation forms, or do you still use an ADF? So, what's an ADF? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with an ADF. But we for at least our edit profile, we used a custom advanced donation form. Okay.
Yeah, form.
So in our donor portal, we actually redirect to all our donation forms. So those are handled by our outside partners. But as far as like the form that we do have in our in Donor Portal, we built that from the ground up using React.
Okay. From Austin here, you have do you have an example you can share where this technology was utilized?
Sure, I can share my screen real quick. This is our Donor Portal. Can everybody see that? So this is all built with React. And this is our giving history page. This is all React, and this is all pulling data from CRM. So it uses that client, it logged me out, but it uses that client request handler that I was talking about earlier. This is our edit profile form, pulls in data, we can edit, we can add new things, and it just pushes it back into a batch.
All right, awesome. Okay. Anything else from anybody? I will go ahead and do this before anybody drops. I'm going to go ahead and push the survey out, so you have that. You can take a few minutes to do that. These surveys are important both for the session and for our presenter, because there are special prizes for both the most surveyed session and I think the highest scored presenter is getting a thing too. So please make sure to take a minute and do that survey. And if you have nothing else going on, I know Manny will be back with us in about 45 minutes or so from now for another presentation on Sky API and OAuth. So which I'm looking forward to seeing some of that since my team has been working on that recently. So excited to see what some of the stuff's doing.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
All right, guys, we'll hang out in here if you have any questions. And if not, please enjoy another few minutes back for your next session. So Manny, we appreciate you for doing this. Appreciate you for sharing your knowledge. I'm looking forward to the next session.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.